A special thank you to each of our subscribers who make this channel possible. Here's today's story. In a bold and controversial move, President Donald Trump has initiated a blockade of sanctioned oil tankers off the coast of Venezuela, raising significant legal and geopolitical concerns. This tactic has led to fears that the U.S. could be on the brink of a military conflict in Latin America. The administration claims that the blockade is specifically designed to target vessels involved in illegal oil trade tied to Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro, who is facing numerous charges, including narcoterrorism. However, critics argue that this aggressive approach may provoke a military response from Venezuela, potentially escalating tensions and drawing American forces into a deeper conflict. Representative Jason Crow, a Democrat from Colorado and a veteran of Iraq and Afghanistan, expressed his apprehension about the implications of this blockade. He stated, "My biggest fear is this is exactly how wars start and how conflicts escalate out of control. There are no adults in the room with this administration, nor is there consultation with Congress. So I'm very worried." This sentiment is echoed by legal experts who warn that the blockade could violate international law and could be seen as an act of war, particularly since it targets a specific industry rather than the country as a whole. The Trump administration maintains that the blockade is a necessary measure to combat drug trafficking and support for Maduro's regime, which has been accused of using oil profits to fund illegal activities. Trump has previously linked Maduro to drug cartels and has vowed to take further military action if necessary. The U.S. military has already engaged in operations against alleged drug smuggling boats, resulting in multiple fatalities. However, this has drawn scrutiny and concern from lawmakers who argue that such actions require congressional authorization. The blockade was announced shortly after the U.S. seized a sanctioned oil tanker, marking a significant escalation in the pressure campaign against Maduro. While some Republicans support the blockade, viewing it as a legitimate enforcement of sanctions, others caution against the potential for unintended consequences. Representative Michael McCall of Texas likened the blockade to targeting Iranian oil tankers, suggesting that it is a necessary step to uphold U.S. sanctions. Maduro's government has condemned the blockade, with Nicolas Maduro Guerra, the president's son, stating that they are being threatened by the most powerful army in the world. He acknowledged the challenges of mitigating the impact of U.S. sanctions on Venezuela's oil-dependent economy, but emphasized the need for peace and dialogue. The U.S. Navy currently has a significant presence in the region, with 11 ships and various aircraft capable of monitoring maritime traffic. Despite the administration's use of the term blockade, Pentagon officials prefer the term quarantine, which they argue is a more precise description of their selective approach to targeting illegal activities without declaring war. Legal scholars have raised questions about the legitimacy of the blockade, noting that under international law, a blockade typically constitutes an act of war. Mark Nevitt, a former Navy Judge Advocate General, pointed out that the blockade seems to operate under a false legal pretense, as the U.S. is not officially at war with narcoterrorists. He stated, "This seems to be almost like a junior varsity blockade, where they're trying to assert a wartime legal tool, a blockade, but only doing it selectively." As the situation develops, lawmakers remain divided on the legality and implications of the blockade. Representative Adam Smith, the ranking Democrat on the House Armed Services Committee, expressed uncertainty about the blockade's legality, emphasizing the need for legal consultation. The U.S. has a long history of employing naval tactics to exert pressure on other nations, but recent administrations have been cautious to avoid actions that could be perceived as punishing civilians. The Trump administration's approach to Venezuela marks a significant departure from previous U.S. foreign policy, with some experts suggesting that it could be an attempt to escalate pressure on Maduro to relinquish power. Jeffrey Korn, a law professor, posited that the blockade might not be intended to provoke conflict, but rather to compel the Maduro regime to step aside. As tensions mount in the region, the international community watches closely, with concerns that this blockade could lead to a larger military engagement. The implications of this action will likely reverberate beyond Venezuela, impacting U.S. relations with other nations in Latin America and potentially altering the landscape of international diplomacy. The coming weeks will be critical in determining whether this blockade will lead to a resolution of the crisis in Venezuela or if it will spiral into a broader conflict. That's all for this story. We upload videos every day covering many different subjects, so hit that subscribe button to stay informed. Thanks for watching.